Aloha. With this video, I wanted to do a quick overview of our kind of just like a rundown of American circumcision. This was shout out to Bro Sanchez for making that little like 1 minute video telling people about this. I hadn't heard of it on Netflix, but I had been studying Netflix for the last like 5 years now, and 4 or 5 years now, and when Ro Sanchez mentioned this, I was like, oh, okay, I got to check this out because I had done a video on what circumcision, how circumcision in this whole atmosphere of normalcy surrounding this idea, how this exists in our reality spiritually, psychologically, and physically, like how all those mix together. This is a very good topic to speak on how all those issues fit together, and this is a good, like my channel specializes in bringing together kind of subjects that you would think not real, that don't really like come together, but they do. So in this video, I actually recorded a whole video. It was an hour and 6 minutes long, that I just finished. It's actually uploading now, but depending on how I get through this video will determine. If I finish this video before that video finishes uploading, I'll upload this video because the other video was more. I'm pretty sure I can shrink down what I said in the other video in this one because it was more just an expansion of what I had already talked about, which is what people understand from the last video of me talking about circumcision, how that affects us, like how this is the establishment is based upon a trauma-based consciousness. Fear controls you not only by stopping you from moving forward, but stopping you from stopping others from moving forward on top of the blood and bones of you and your ancestors. So there's that whole world of fear, dominance, control, and authority that gets thrusted onto our reality as the end all be all. The main thing to focus on, and what I was talking about in the last video, is the idea of authority that has overtaken our basic survival practices or our basic observations of reality, with stuff like flat earth. But even more obviously, this is more obvious than flat earth, like how fucked up it is, to be presented with a question of no medical background, no medical, like there's no studies that have been proven or shown to do like in favor for circumcision. This is a worldwide thing. It's heavily accepted, or it's a religious belief in Judaism. We know the relationship between Christianity and the modern Western colonial world and Israel and Judaism and that whole world. So this makes sense by Christianity, this being like a regular thing in the United States, but it's basically not at all a practice in Europe. So this is part of the New World manipulation program to gather people around. These are rallying points. This year, we have to be very cognizant about what it is, how we're approaching what we're talking about, because this year is going to be about activating information. So last year, the information, how people were just very generally, just on a macro scale of consciousness, very generally, last year, how I see it, people were researching a lot of information, even if they weren't researching a lot of information. They were privy to a lot of information if they weren't researching it. What happens after a year of that, because that was last year, 2018, from the conditioning perspective of the system, 2018 was really focusing on the overconsumption, overabundance of information for the sake of what? For the sake of chaos, for the sake of manipulating what is supposedly true, for the sake of designating what's what we should focus on, what we shouldn't focus on, and making the entire world kind of reset in a space of insecurity. So when the news is not trustworthy, the education system's not trustworthy, the medical system's not trustworthy, the political scene is all a bullshit. You know, your justice system is all corrupt. Everything is about corruption and basically like a malpractice. So just as doctors practice they have a malpractice, you know, thing. The thing is, society as we know it today, how I'm explaining it, is that we are underneath the authority of a so-called doctor who has placed itself in front of everybody as the authority figure, but this doctor has been convicted by our justice system, by our doctors, by our scientists. This system's scientific, medical, educational, political, intellectual, entertainment consciousness is guilty of spiritual, psychological, and physical malpractice. Is basically what that whole hour video that I made that I'm not going to upload now was based upon. Bringing that to the surface and linking together the reality that every single angle of so-called modern civilization is backed by a synthetic authority that comes from the consciousness of the masses being subjected to this abuse, this trauma, this lack of connection to nature, this separation from each other, the separation from the sun, the moon, the stars, the everything. Basically, on a psychological warfare, the educational system, so-called education system, has the same effect on the individual as the Big Bang and heliocentrism has on the individual. Basically, specifically the Big Bang. The intellectual system that says, go to school, learn what we tell you, don't learn about yourself, graduate, and then you can be successful and prideful and all that other stuff. That is the psychological malpractice warfare. That is the world that says everything that goes in your interpretation in your brain. This is how we have to see it to really see how fucked up this is. It's kind of like if you've watched that American Circumcision documentary and you come back and after it and then you realize like what was really said, what was really being said. See, right now, before you see the documentary, you're not privy to all the information. You're not privy to the experiences a lot of people have to go through and are going through as both babies and adults. We don't know this information. We're not privy to it. So we default to what the modern expectation or the modern approach to something like circumcision is. What's the modern approach to circumcision? What's the real world MTV, VH1, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News approach towards circumcision? Well, it's the norm. It's disgusting and nasty and dirty to have an uncircumcised dick. They make fun of you because of all kinds of other stuff. What's happening here in that conversation is that people are being desensitized and being programmed to hate themselves. On one level, they're programmed to disconnect from what is natural. Circumcision traumatically gives the individual, the system, the establishment, the authority over their very life, their livelihood. So parents no longer have the authority over their child anymore in a hospital, even a brand new one. The authority of the child automatically gets sucked into what? It gets sucked into the authority of the hospital. Basically, your parents are nothing. They have no say anymore because the authority of the parents has been so dumbed down into believing with the utmost of their ability into the authority of the healthcare system. So the healthcare system, the education system, the political system, the entertainment system, all of these establishment systems are all designed to do the same thing, to add trauma, add fear, or add like a pride, and add or all of the above, like add all of these. And it plays that game of back and forth, black and white, red and blue, good and bad, superhero and villain, so that you can fall into whatever it is that they want you to fall into next. The reason why I'm redoing this video right now, after putting all that damn work, had to make the video, then convert the video, then upload it. The reason why I'm stopping it right now is because one of the main things that I didn't really address, I hinted towards it in that video, but I wanted to shorten this video down and emphasize this, because this was the main thing after all that shit. And this is how Netflix is. This is what I said in the last video too, but I wanted to say specifically what how it's being done in Netflix and in this documentary specifically. So you can see it and you can know where I'm coming from, because this is not really about American circumcision. This is not about the linear programs within the non-linear establishment program. The linear programs are just a way to control you, a way to manipulate you, a way to make you think that something beneficial or something as bad is happening. That's the design of those linear things. This is a linear thing. American circumcision in life. We're talking about the authority. That entire documentary was about the medical authority and the peer group authority of pop intelligence, pop science, pop education, pop politics. That's what we are experiencing right now. And this pop, it's turned pop because before it was pop or popular, it was obviously inhumane, obviously masochistic, like whatever that word is, obviously just totally ungodly in many different ways. No amount of spirit, no amount of this is the synthetic intelligence or the artificial intelligence running around. This is what it looks like. It's the artificial intelligence running around in a biological body trying to appear human. But it's so far from what our complexities are as a human being, or beyond a human being, as a spiritual light being, or as whatever you want to call it, as a reflection, as a manifestation of the Most High. That idea, that mentality alone is a threat. It's a threat. I lost my train of thought with the phone call and the disruption, but I think no matter. Trauma was my main focus in this discussion. I'm pretty sure I left off there. I think, okay, that's what it was. I think. Maybe it wasn't. But this is important nonetheless. The trauma relates to control, authority. So just as you have an education or intellectual authority that comes from the education system, that stems from the belief in the evolutionary peak of humanity being from a monkey to now, is based upon technology. The same way education makes you accept technology as the evolutionary peak of this experience, is the same way that the system will. The system is trying to, or the establishment is attempting to make technology and what's that word? It starts with an I, like in like you can't live without it. Not inseparable, indispensable, yeah, all those words. You know what I'm talking about? Like you need technology every day. It's a requirement. So technology is basically taking the authority over your human experience because they have told you that monkey evolution program through humanity, it's peaked out at technology. So you think subconsciously and consciously that the next evolutionary step has to be based upon technology. And who created the technology? Whoever created the technology and the authority of intellect now has created a godly type of authority over you through intellect. They do the godly authority over you with every single system. So the healthcare system, a so-called healthcare system, so they call it a healthcare system for no reason. They call it a healthcare system because it's really based upon using you as a guinea pig, controlling you, and ensuring your sickness over a certain amount of, over a lifetime, actually, so they can profit off of it. It's a very complex organism or system. Point being is that this whole idea of authority is everywhere. The justice system does the same thing. By telling you that it's spreading freedom around the world. You vote, you say go to war, you do this, you're giving your spiritual, intellectual, and physical energy away to their masochistic belief systems, their backwards, reverse, and upside down versions of this human experience. You're giving them the authority to enslave you. Netflix is the next version of enslavement under the guise of intellectual evolution, intellectual revolution. So the main thing that the reason why I'm stopping this video, and it's okay that I'm shortening it up because, like I said, the most of the other stuff was just emphasis of how fucked up, you know, the trauma and the malpractice of this, and the comparison between emptiness to this, to American circumcision, the trauma and that whole thing. It's okay to shorten it down because my main issue is with Netflix. Like, obviously, circumcision is the main topic here, but like I said in another video that I didn't upload, was talking about the idea of, I'm not even gonna go in that. That's something else. It's a whole nother topic for another video. To stay on topic here, the trauma, the focus, the control, the authority is all maintained on a daily basis through social media, mainstream media, the local news, your education system, so-called scientific news, breakthroughs, and the long scale approach to science and so forth. What happens is, when you have been emptied out because you have given all of your authority and responsibility away to the establishment, when you've been emptied out in order to be enslaved and controlled so you don't know it, you have to be refilled again by something that mimics your original fulfillment. So when we are emptied out from our spiritual, psychological, and true physical nature, we are filled with the synthetic artificial intelligence version of reality. And once we are overflowed with this artificial authority system, we no longer can think, act, or even consciously engage anything in this reality from any kind of deep sort of, like, point being is that at a certain level of authority, at a certain level of giving away our power, we no longer stand to be who we are. We are now we have now been replaced with what we have been told to be. This is what's happening on a massive scale. This is why I said it's not so much to focus on. I'm not saying don't, address stuff like circumcision. What I'm saying is that that's one way to approach movement. For people who are ready to step into the macro world, gather a lot of these movements and start to see, or gather a lot of these ideas and these systems or these realizations like circumcision, gather it all together and trace it back to its origins on a psychological warfare. Its origins on a physical warfare. It's obvious in the origins on a physical warfare, but origins on the spiritual warfare and psychological warfare. There's a lot of work there. There's a lot of information that could be used to help you grow, and information to help other people grow and learn more and move on, so on and so forth. The thing is, when we submit to a particular authority, we don't really see it because we're still caught up in our regular day-to-day things. Once we've been emptied out, our next thing to do is to fill ourselves up. And of course, they have everything to fill ourselves up with. We are forced to do that a lot of the times because our peers have done that. And since most people are followers instead of leaders, most people will follow whatever's happening, even if it's to the detriment of their own health or their own well-being. So this is what has happened over generations upon generations upon generations. And we're at the point right now where I said last year, 2018 was about the overabundance of information, how the system, like obviously we've researched way more information over, last year than, or our research of information last year was like 10 years worth of information for other people, or 5 years for other people, or whatever. But you see what I mean? Basically, on a massive scale, how I'm seeing it, a majority of the people have gotten to a point of insecurity with the ideas of authority in the world overall. Justice, education, cosmology, so-called intelligence, food, water, air, shelter, all this stuff, free energy, everything. Everything is unstable right now. 2018 was like a culmination of that unstable realizations becoming confirmed. So for the masses, the unstable last year, 2018, was, in how I see it, was about, even if you can't see it, even if they don't like show it as much, subconsciously and in many ways consciously, because Netflix is showing this is what I'm saying. Netflix is like the artificial conscious version of what's going on. Is what's going on all shown on Netflix? Of course not. But it's the mainstream conscious version of what's going on. That's what I said I wanted to focus on in this video, is because that's the biggest threat to what's coming about this next year. Because this next year, 19 and 20, is to take all of that information. Now people are in a space of wanting to do something with the information and wanting to move somewhere. It's a movement sort of thing, because now they got all this bubbling. Think about it, like all the bubbling of information people have downloaded in their reality for the last year is now coming to a space of, whether they even know that there's something to do with it or what to do with it, the system has gotten to a point of getting ready to do something with it, whether they like it or not. And they're going to like it, some of them, because that's the way people are being conditioned with programs like Netflix. What Netflix does is, and I've done this in a number of videos, is it puts out truthful information, but that truthful information is like truthful information with a trap door mechanism on there. It's truthful information up to a point. Once you hit that point, you fall right in that trap door, and now you become a revolutionary for a non-revolutionary revolution. So now you become a protester for a protest that doesn't really have any kind of power behind it. So in reference to like Black Lives Matter, which was orchestrated obviously by the system. Does that mean what they were saying doesn't exist or doesn't matter? Of course not. That means it's actually way more complex than what was released. So that's our responsibility to do there and not be consumed by what has been prepositioned by the system for us to fall within. Once the system keeps doing that, it can maintain its authority because it's not telling us what to do. It's putting the information out for us to tell us what to do. So it's not telling you to protest, and it's not telling you to do all this like formally with itself, it's only making you make those decisions based upon largely ignorance. Fear is another part of it, and so on and so forth. But that's the way it maintains its perspective of being a superhero. And you're the villain, or the system is the villain, or the earth is the villain, whatever it is the villain at the time. ISIS, whatever it is. That's the game that's being played on every level. And until we realize the macro game, we're not going to be able to see. We're approaching non-linear systems with linear approaches. This is what Netflix specializes in. When you're looking at circumcision, are you really see, they only said it for a split second in here. The main thing, that's the biggest thing in here, there's one lady who said it in here. She was talking about the trauma. What happens? I mean, they went into, like, obviously, like a baby being traumatized, but then they didn't come from a spiritual perspective. They went from a psychologically and, into the introduction of a spiritual trauma. Obviously, a physical trauma, psychological trauma over time, having being abused with this circumcision, having a piece of you missing, having your sensation missing, having your feeling, and then having just been, taken advantage of because of what? Because of the way things are. They're just accepted. Well, the military-industrial complex is accepted. The prison industrial complex is accepted. Slavery was accepted at one time. It's accepted today in its own new fashion, new form. So circumcision is the same way. And like I said, this comes from people, the masses as a whole, not having any kind of solid structure, not having any kind of anchor points or roots that are connected to something that has more authority, spiritual authority, meaning than the system overall. We're kept from realizing that. That's why you can't know your history, you can't know your cosmology, you can't know your culture, you can't know your ethnicity, you can't be connected to your land. All of this is a threat to the synthetic authority. So the synthetic authority is basically a side, or it's chapter 2 to the emptying you out. So you're spiritually emptied out by religions because it's a belief system. It's not an authority. It's not your authority. A belief is not an authority, just like a belief is not a truth. When you get into a connection or an expression as an expression of the Most High, you have just activated an authority that is with you, and the utmost of your spiritual expression has nothing to do with any other synthetic authorities. There's been multiple synthetic authorities that have been generated in this system over years, over time, that we accept as the norm and in many cases truth, ultimate truth, the Big Bang, and so on and so forth. So as I'm closing this out right now, this is what it really boils down to. The same way the Big Bang and heliocentrism empties you out through intellectual or educational trauma, and conditioning, is the same way that circumcision locks you out of parts of yourself through spiritual trauma, physical trauma, and psychological trauma, straight out the gate at your most sensitive, at your peak performance. Like, you just got here. You haven't been beaten down by this destructive ass system. You're here. As soon as you get here, they cut a part of your sensories off, your most sensitive self. They chop it off. How is that any different than being chopped off from a part of your beingness through the military-industrial complex and voting for, wars and all this other shit? How is that different from people being convinced that lynching people was legal back in the day, not that long ago? It's fucking with your senses. It's manipulating your authority. We have no definitions of what humanity is. And for people who are expanding beyond that shit, we have the responsibility now to say, fuck humanity. We're trying to get back to understanding what's beyond humanity, the spirit realm, like here. So once we figure out that what the point is of the spirit realm, then we'll have a better understanding and overstanding of what the physical realm is. It's not to demonize or dog out the physical realm or even the psychological realm. It's to anchor ourselves in something that's deeper than what the system has anchored or the establishment has anchored itself in and as. It's no different. It's another way of saying expanding yourself out of the level of consciousness that created the problem in the first place. See, things move so fast in this manipulated system that we don't realize that that's our responsibility. We actually have to do that. And then we don't know how to start. So we get caught up in, what's presented out there for us, where to start. So like I was saying, and I'll close it out on this. Netflix closed out this American circumcision video with what? What is the last thing American circumcision said? Human rights. This is what I've been saying for the last few years now. Flat Earth, Netflix, and any other conspiracy theory, Alex Jones and all these other people out there, they are there to get the wheels moving towards the human sort of mentality. This is why on this channel I'm moving out of humanity and oneness and all that other bullshit and moving into that which is really going to activate and connect us. And it ain't got shit to do with these Webster's dictionary versions of labels of who and what we are, like human and oneness and unity and all that other Oprah, Eckhart Tolle, Tony Robbins bullshit. We need to anchor ourselves deeper than what the system is planning to use against us. What the system is planning to use against us is the idea of human rights, is the idea of human unity. But it is underneath the authority of this new world order. And the way they're going to get you to like and love and accept and welcome and actually activate the new world order is through things like Netflix and linear approaches. Like, obviously, circumcision needs to be taken care of. Obviously, we need to address that program. Obviously, we need to address the criminalization of cannabis. Obviously, we need to. So basically what I'm saying is, like I said in the other videos, everything that they're giving you, legalizing weed, their so-called human rights, even free energy, a new version of cosmology, a new version of our reality, more technology, simpler, just the same way. And just the same way they're kind of like, not kind of, definitely hurting you into this non-physical sort of technology on your body. It's simple. I mean, you can see it every day with the iPhone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to 10, and then letters. Now what they're doing, or you can see it even more so now in moving in what they're getting ready to do, which is they're getting ready to... Shit, I just lost my train of thought. What the hell was I talking about? Because I clicked on that damn thing. It took me out. Took me out of my train of thought. So it's talking about Netflix, human rights, and so on and so forth. Okay, so Netflix is... Or they're getting ready to activate all of the synthetic versions of the old protests. So the Black Lives Matter protests, the Me Too movement, and all those other, like the gun control stuff, false flag, Alex Jones getting taken down. Like, all this stuff is about to be combined into one voice, like one big thing that is going to be sold to the people as like the best thing since sliced bread. Like, it's the savior of the world, the savior of Rome, basically. Netflix is going to be the savior of Rome, or they're trying to use it as a savior of Rome. So they will produce all, they'll pay for all these documentaries to make it look like they're progressive, to make it look like they give a fuck about you, and they don't. But they'll produce all of this bullshit to make it appear as things are changing, appear as this, because once it's time for them to make their move, the system, that's when they say, okay, well, we're going to legalize this, we're going to do, here's your free healthcare, free energy, take care of the food, get the fluoride out of the water, if they go that far, stop chemtrails. You see, the thing was, just like they do with the presidency, set the bar so low that you can't, like anything that they present to you that appears to be any better than where you are right now, or where the bar it is that they set, then it makes them look like gods. So that's what this really boils down to. This boils down to, when they traumatize you as a baby, they have basically made a disconnect between you and your parents, because you and your parents have this security connection. You're born here, they immediately take you away and traumatize you. They abuse you, and then they give you back to your parents. Then you got to go back to your parents. All these kids that have been circumcised, they go back to their parents from an abusive relationship now. So all these people were in this abusive relationship. I've done, like I said, I've done this video about circumcision about a year and a half, 2 years ago, something like this. Can't remember what it was. I'll try to find it. But that's the main thing that is involved in this whole situation. They need to traumatize you. It's like abuse. It's another version of the Stockholm Syndrome. Traumatize, fear, so on and so forth. You get the individuals to do what it is that they need to do to control you. Or they're dumbed down so they can control you, because you don't have any strength, any idea. In fact, you love them. So this is what Netflix is trying to do. It's trying to get you to love this system, love the synthetic version of revolution, love this idea of change, orchestrated change. So they want to tell you, they want to put the Black Lives Matter protest out there so it can live and die. So when they put their own version of protesting or information or change out there, and it lives and they let it live, now they say, oh, well, this is real change. You tried it for yourself, but it only works when we do it. But that's what they're trying to do. That's what they're doing with Netflix, and that's what they're trying to do with all these other fake movements and all this other stuff. I pretty much said what I said in the whole other video. I gotten into the trauma, really expanded upon that a lot, but that's really what I wanted to boil down to and emphasize in this video, more so the need to pay attention to the macro movements. Yes, this is a good documentary about circumcision. Yes, it's something we need to pay attention to, but what is more important, what is more dangerous? What is more dangerous is that quick little statement. If you're asking me, what is more dangerous and what is more important to pay attention to inside of this linear idea of something that is very important, like I said, linear doesn't mean not important. Linear just means part of something else that might be more important. And more often than not is more important when we're talking about macro scales and how it affects larger groups of people. The system orchestrating these moves is definitely a version of psychological warfare. It's moving from physical to psychological warfare. That means it's our responsibility to maintain an awareness of the physical and the psychological warfare, but now to move towards the spiritual warfare. So if they have already moved into the psychological warfare, this documentary is a proof that they are getting into the nuts and bolts of psychological warfare. It's not about just they're talking about trauma. They're talking about things that they're doing in society that have side effects in your psychology, in your consciousness. Trauma-based control measures. This is something that hasn't even been recognized before. Now it's being shared by the system. This is a proof that the system is moving towards addressing, or at least expanding, their version of psychological warfare into the next gear. And the people are going to be the ones that fall for it, because the people have been conditioned to stay in the world of thinking that physical warfare is the main focus point. No, it's not. It's part of it. Don't not look at it. The thing is, like in chess moves, they're playing 10 steps ahead of you. And not even that. It's on a 3-tiered chess game for your soul, your mind, and your body. I've said this over and over and over again. 2018 was about the just slam them with information so they become chaotic. 19 and 20, they're going to nail everything political, scientific, entertainment. They're going to get all these celebrities out there to amplify all of that. And then by the time 2020 come around, I'm thinking they're getting ready to activate that whole new world interpretation of, well, a president ain't gonna fix everything. A new president ain't gonna fix everything. So we need to start thinking on an international level. So that's probably when they're gonna activate that new age stuff. 19 seems to be like a buffer zone between the information and activating that information for the next type of control grid. So if the system, like I said, and I'll close it on this, if the system is moving towards a psychological warfare, it's our responsibility to move towards a spiritual warfare and address the psychological and physical warfare simultaneously. But if we consume ourselves with the psychological warfare and the physical warfare without anchoring ourselves first in the spiritual warfare, we're going to miss out on our spiritual capabilities outside of warfare, along with missing out on our capabilities with addressing that spiritual warfare and psychological and physical, so on and so forth. So all of those things are in and around this whole American circumcision. Like I said, that's a linear thing involving it's a subcategory to a larger category. If it's on Netflix, you know whatever the information is about is not about that information. What is the motive behind that? The motive behind a lot of this stuff is what they end on. So when you're listening to these documentaries, watch what, not only watch what they're telling you to pay attention to you and what not to do, pay attention to what they're telling you to do. They're telling you a lot of this shit because they want you to vest a lot of your energy, your trust, and your authority, your spiritual, psychological, and physical authority back into the system. Netflix is a world to take that energy that you think is truthful and fringe and reinvest it back into the system. And that's what 2019 is going to be about. These documentaries are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. They're going to get more and more involved. Hollywood, Netflix, YouTube, they're all going to get bigger. Like I said in that video I deleted, that was focusing on how YouTube is going to be the transition point from the dead to bring the mainstream media back to life. They're going to use these celebrities to humanize this sort of renaissance, this Western renaissance. That's what they're trying to do with technology, transhumanism, simulation theory, so on and so forth. Trying to revamp the mainstream media. They're revamping the mainstream media with YouTube and putting celebrities on YouTube. Will Smith was the first to do this. He wasn't the first, but he was one of the biggest ones because he was the one they put on Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon or whatever, one of the damn Jimmys. They put him on there to promote his YouTube channel. This was when he had like 500,000. He had to work to get his damn subscribers up to 1 million, and he had content on there. And then the next thing that the next story that I saw was just a couple of days ago was Jack Black started a YouTube channel. He ain't got no content up there and already got 2 million subscribers, and it's a gaming channel. So this is what's happening this year. This is what's going to happen. They're going to co-opt Flat Earth, and then they're going to Flat Earth and YouTube and Flat Earth and everything, and repackage it and sell it back to you in their version, in better production styles, better editing techniques, better information, better maps, better this. And like I said in previous videos, they needed you first, just like they're using celebrities to humanize the New World Order and this New World version of reality. They're used regular people, just like I said, to humanize information as a whole, to humanize fringe information. So they couldn't do it with their celebrities because they'd automatically know, we'd automatically know that there's some bullshit behind it. If, Jack Black or Will Smith start talking about flat earth out of nowhere, you got to think something's wrong with that. But if they become human and personal and start talking to you and your flat earth friends and all that other stuff over time, then what happens? Then it becomes this sort of us thing. It's we're doing it, right? So all they got to do is find the people who are going to go along with that story regardless of what they say. And who's on the front line? Of course, it's the people at the conference who are all about getting the word out. That's what the system wants you to try to do, to get the word out. They want to get the word out so they can get the next version of so-called truth out there to control the people. But like I said, they can't do it without your help. So they did it with your help last year. Now they're going to do it without your help. They're going to dog y'all asses out this year. And then they're going to replace regular YouTubers with Hollywood YouTubers. That's what 2019 is going to be about. We got to stay ahead of the curve. Watch what's going on. Don't fall for this in-between type of change sort of shit. I got a lot of information I want to talk about. To go in further about the upcoming year and last year, but I'm going to keep this video short. Hopefully it's still running, but I pretty much said what I needed to say on this. This is about trauma, psychological and spiritual control, circumcision, everything, circumcision, the Big Bang, everything that's designed to separate you from nature, from your family. This is on purpose. This ain't no thing that just happened like, oh, the Jews are doing this and the Christian. Yeah, they might be a part of it. They might have like groups and all this other shit that's going on. But the macro scale of this is the fact that it exists in the first place. That's what really matters. Like a lot of the things to deflect from the fact that the shit exists is to focus your attention and your information on blaming people. I'm not saying don't track down how this is connected to certain groups of people. I never say that. What I'm saying is that take that and go even further than that. Take it into the macro scale and really see where this stuff is coming from. This is circumcision stuff. This is a spiritual warfare. This is going into the psychology of your body, your body's relationship with the psyche and the spirit. And as long as we keep accepting this psychopathic, this is torture. This is modern accepted torture every day. And we accept these different versions of torture in different styles every day too. We don't really realize that, it's our responsibility to do this because we've given our authority away. Once again, we've given our authority and our responsibility away to the individuals who have said that they are the authorities of intellect. They are the authorities of health. They are the authorities of food. They are the authorities of water. They are the authorities of education. They are the authorities of nature. They are the authorities of international interactions, the authorities of the sky, the sun, the moon, everything. They're the authorities of your entire reality until you break free from not some of the authority of your reality. All of the authority of your reality needs to be faced and addressed. See, a lot of the people who are still kind of like needing something from this world, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, a lot of them will not go to do that work. They're not gonna face what's comfortable for them. They're not gonna do that. So if that's happening subconsciously, they will fight you to hide the fact that they are fighting themselves. And if it's happening consciously, they'll do the same thing, but they'll get more aggressive with it. And it'll be more emotional and it'll be more intricate. But subconsciously, the main thing is to shut down because of ignorance. Like, just to say you're wrong, attack you, all that other stuff. This is what's happening on a global scale, on a massive scale, because of our relationship to the authority of our reality. We have none. There is no authority that we take responsibility for in this reality. It's instantaneously given to the system because of their authority, like circumcision, healthcare, and stuff like that. So yeah, that's basically it. Once they empty you out with the Big Bang, since you're empty, you have to be replaced with a lot of something. The so-called scientific intelligence is a something. This is an authority. You don't see. There's a spiritual and there's a spiritual relationship with the true science that this system is not acknowledging. Because if they acknowledge true science, they will have to acknowledge true spirit. If they acknowledge true spirit, they will have to acknowledge your ancestors. If they acknowledge your ancestors, they will have to acknowledge the fact that every single piece of their empire is built on the blood and the bones of your ancestors and on the land that was stolen. And if they acknowledge any of that bullshit, they will lose their power. So this synthetic authority needs to be maintained. And like I said, they maintained it before by scaring the shit out of you and telling you basically we just need to go to war because there's bad guys out there. But now they can't really control you with fear as much as they used to, because the information that's been available to people is starting to remove a lot of the fear. So now that they know that people are not being feared into submission, they're not being dumbed down into submission because they have access to information now. They're not being punked into submission because they used to believe whatever the mainstream media and celebrities and the news and politicians said. Now they can't push you, they can't bully you no more, can't kill you, slave you, all that other stuff. I mean, they could try and do all that, but they know we'll fight back. But they can't do it without us acknowledging it. Now we're starting to acknowledge all of that. Now the system has to move into playing like it's on our side, like it's on our team. This is what these documentaries are on Netflix. This is what the New World Order, the New Age community, and so on and so forth is. Even sections of Flat Earth and conspiracy corners. And all those little Alex Jones conspiracy little worlds, and all those are linear storylines. So they can, you put He-Man in there later on and say he's defeated Skeletor. And then boom, you got your new world. So that's basically what I wanted to share with this. You're basically dead on arrival when you get here. You're stuck in trauma-based programming, coding, and the rest of your life is trying to get back to an even keel. How I explained it in the last video is that just imagine yourself getting here. You're like a super being. You get here. You're dialed in. You're charged. You're a baby. You just got here. You got your mom and your pops right there. You're getting ready to do some serious shit here in this realm. You don't know what it is, but it's some serious shit. And then 10 minutes after getting here, or a day or two after getting here, they chop a piece of your fucking dick off. In the presence of your protectors. In the presence of basically your gods. Like your mom and your pop. So you have no security anymore. Your entire world is based on trauma now. You have to go. You can't speak about what happened. You can't ask questions. You don't know what's going on. They're not telling you. You're in this excruciating pain. And now you're just supposed to, your only comfort is what? Breast milk and whatever. Nowadays, you're surrounded by electronics and so on and so forth. It creates codependent people. This is what circumcision also does. It breaks people down, desensitizes people. Not only the babies, but the parents. How desensitized do you have to be to allow your children to do this? Or allow these doctors to do this to your babies. So moving from there is where I went into talking about how this system is playing God. And it's the authority of God, or the authority of the Most High, that controls you. Everything is manipulated to be through a middleman, a synthetic version of what doesn't need to be. You don't need an in-between thing between you and the Most High. You don't need an in-between thing between you and, you know, like what your body requires on a daily basis. You don't need any of this stuff. But the system tells you is you're required to have this. Why? Because they make their money off of being the middleman. And in being the middleman, they have also become your God. They ain't gonna tell you that though, but they've become your God because what? Everything that you knew and know and need in this reality is based upon, it has to be filtered through that system. So this is what this system is trying to do quite literally in the scientific world realm and quantum physics and quantum mechanics and all that other stuff. Quite literally, they're trying to create themselves to appear as God or spiritualize this reality so much, or you so much, despiritualize you so much that their expression of God, their expressions of reality are more godly than you. So this is how they're telling you that your protests are not worth it, your revolution's not worth it. The way we change is worth it. And we need to come together as humans, as one, and make sure that we make sure that the system gives us our human rights. That's how they ended it, right? And what happens when you ask somebody for your human rights? They will give you what you asked for. They will give you what you have empowered them, you have charged them with. When you tell them to give you human rights, who is the only thing that could give a human consciousness any kind of rights? That consciousness has to predate. It has to come before. Like your rights come from where your soul is anchored. They're not based upon what synthetic rulers say in this world. No. Your rights, your so-called human in their world, your most high godly rights are never left. They've never left you. But since we've been in this world for so long where so many fucked up ungodly things are accepted, we are being de-evolved, de-most high. You know, so we're being despiritualized from every angle. And like I said in all these other ones, when they despiritualize you, de-intellectualize you, everything, de-evolve, desensitize you, they are raising their version of themselves above you. That's the whole point with all of this. That system is designed to de-evolve you and bring you down, not only to bring you down, but to bring itself up. Keep that in mind for 2019. That's already what happened in 2018. It's going to be more obvious this year. Keep that in mind when you're watching these documentaries that are going to be thrown in your face throughout this year. Keep that in mind when they're telling you things are changing and they're going to try to usher you into this international socialist new world, sort of new religion, new food, new mentality of, you know, what this realm is all about and so on and so forth. Everything's going to be new, everything's going to be smart, and everything's going to be free. Keep an eye out for those words. Free, smart, new, and sustainable. Free, smart, new, and sustainable. One more time. Free, smart, new, and sustainable. These are going to be the key words for your new world order and anything whatever they're going to try to do. Keep those words. What are they? Free, new, smart, and sustainable. Keep that in mind for this year, because that's going to be the big picture that they're going to try to sell to people, and it's our responsibility to do something about it, to point out the bullshit before they activate the bullshit, and people fall into the bullshit thinking that that's the best thing to happen. So, you know, keep an eye out for that. Thank you for joining me. Hopefully the video is still rolling. And until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.